Hey, good morning. This is Joe Van Cleve. Today's video is going to be about photography, and we're going to look at using this old Kodak Retina IIIC rangefinder camera, which has a built-in light meter, but the light meter is broken. We're going to be using that out in the field shooting some Kentmere 100 black and white film. And I'm going to be using, for metering, I'm going to be using this new, to me, I just got it yesterday, Sekonic L308SU light meter. So we're going to have a new light meter with an old manual rangefinder camera. Woohoo! Well, as far as shooting film cameras, and especially 35mm cameras, I have a number of SLRs, not a huge number. I have a couple Minolta X370 and an X700. As far as other types of film cameras, I have some point and shoot 35mm film cameras, and then I have two rangefinders. I have an old Soviet Zorky 4, and then I have this Kodak Retina. This Kodak Retina, I love this camera. I got this camera about maybe 20 years ago. A neighbor of mine, an old gentleman, 2 houses up the street from me, had passed away, and it turns out that he was a camera repairman his whole professional life, and I didn't even know that this guy lived next to me until he passed away. They were having an estate sale, but this is one camera that he owned and he obviously fixed. But the Kodak Retina has a clamshell that opens up, and the lens and shutter assembly telescopes out. It is a rangefinder camera, and it has a leaf shutter up on the lens itself, and this particular camera has a Schneider Xenon, Retina Xenon lens. It's a focal length of the lens, I believe, is a 50mm. Yes, a 50mm f2 lens. There is a selenium light meter in this camera, but it doesn't work. And actually last weekend I made some attempt at trying to repair this light meter, and what I determined was there's a broken wire on the meter movement. The meter movement uses like a D'Arsonval coil, magnetic coil device, and the really super hair fine wire, there's a broken wire in that, and that's why it's not working. Anyways, it is a rangefinder camera, so your viewfinder is here, and the viewfinder looks through this front window here, and the rangefinder patch in the middle comes from this viewfinder over here. So the base leg of the rangefinder looks like about 2 inches or so. So it's a very cool camera though, and we're going to go out and have fun with it. And along with that, the new Sekonic light meter. Now, I have my classic old Goss and Luna Pro F light meter that I've used for years. I've had it repaired twice. It still works right now, but I was hoping to get a newer light meter that I could use out in the field with these manual cameras that don't have working light meters. The thing I like about the Sekonic and this style of meter is you can use it in incident mode, which with the dome in this mode, and if I had the camera in front of me, I would simply hold the light meter up pointing toward me and take a reading. And if I was in the same light as my subject, I'd be able to take that incident reading and put those settings on the camera and transfer it. Now, if I'm going to be using reflected metering, I simply slide the dome away and take a reading that way at the subject. But I'm going to go out today. We're going to go down to the UNM or Nob Hill part of Albuquerque, and we're going to take some photos, and I'm going to try to manage carrying rangefinder camera, light meter, and video camera all at the same time. We'll see how that works, huh? Okay, let's get going. Okay, so I was driving down toward breakfast, and I see this interesting house, this old house that I want to take a photograph of. So I'm going to turn on the old light meter, and I have to set the ISO to 100. There's ISO 100, and I'm going to take an incident reading. So I'm going to be in the same light that the house is, and I'm going to push the button. Let's make sure I'm not shading it. So at 125th of a second, it's going to be about f11. So I'm going to set that exposure on my camera.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Joe Van Cleve.
I'm Stuart Goldberg.
There you go.
And that's Dennis. And that's recording. If you don't want to be recorded, tell me.
Yeah.
You know.
That's right.
Because we have to sign a release.
What are you eating there, Dennis? What is Stuart? What are you eating?
I'm eating a burrito supreme.
There you go. Well, we're down by Nob Hill or in UNM in Albuquerque, and I got the little light meter going, and I got the Kodak Retina going, and we just had breakfast, and I'm going to go through here and take some pictures. So the thing about this light meter is it has an EV mode. So I have it in EV mode right now, exposure values. So I'm going to basically set it, point it toward me, and push the button, and it says it's EV 14.8, about EV 15. And then what I do is on my Kodak camera, I set its lens to EV 14 or 15. And now it has the same exposure as the meter recommended, because these old cameras were operated in EVs. So it's nice having a light meter that can also operate in the EV mode. So I'm taking photos of this back loading dock behind the restaurants here. So I've wound the film, taken a meter reading, and set my rangefinder focus. You set EV values on this ring right here, whatever the meter gives you as an EV value, and then that gives you a combination of shutter speeds and f-stops on the lens that you can use. Push the button, it recommends about EV 12. And I would set the EV number right on the lens of the camera and put it up to my face. I will focus. This is the focusing knob right here. I would focus the image, lining up the double image in the rangefinder, and then take the picture. And you might have heard it's a very quiet sounding shutter. It sounds like a little watch snick, a little snick sound. So it's a very elegant little camera. EV11. EV11. Focus. So I think when you're working with old manual film cameras, having a modern, lightweight, small light meter is almost essential, because these old meters, like for instance the broken one on this Retina and others, they're not necessarily accurate even if they work, and they're never very sensitive to low light. The nice thing about the new meters is you know they're going to be accurate, and you know they're going to be pretty sensitive to low light. And so it becomes kind of an essential tool for taking these old cameras out and making them into useful tools for photography. So I really recommend this combination of an old film camera, like a neat old rangefinder, with a new light meter, and get yourself some black and white film. I'm currently shooting this Kentmere 100, which I've never used before. The price is pretty decent. Kentmere is a subsidiary of Ilford, Harman Ilford in England, and so it promises to be a pretty good film. You know, these old film cameras from the mid-20th century, the shutter speeds, especially on this rangefinder that the maximum shutter speed is 0.05 of a second, they don't really work too well with 400 speed film in bright sun, because you just can't speed the shutter up enough to get the required exposure. So you kind of have to use slow film, 100 speed, which is sort of what films were like back in the mid-20th century. The fun thing about using these old film cameras, especially ones like the Retina that are built so well and they have that quiet little leaf shutter, is when you're using a modern light meter, it's an interesting experience because you're pretty well guaranteed to get a good picture, and it really is a neat experience handling these old manual cameras.
I think that's why people like them, is they're so rewarding in terms of their feel and their haptics and their mechanical nature. Yeah, it's really refreshing using these kind of cameras. And film is fun. Well, that was fun. I finished up that 36 exposure roll of the Kentmere 100 on the Kodak Retina with my new light meter, and I guess if I get time today, I might try developing that roll and seeing what happens. So this is Joe in Nob Hill, Albuquerque, and I'm going to go home and see what we get.